I've been a forester for 45 years and an NESAF member for just about that long. Welcome to the plenary session of day 2 here at the New England NESAF meeting. I've been blessed with the opportunity to work on the program committee with a wonderful group of folks, and you're going to really enjoy what's coming up. There's only one housekeeping item that I've been told I should share as we start, and that is that somebody lost a cell phone, and they have it at the registration desk, and to figure out whether it's yours, it's got blue paint on it. So all of you who don't use a paint gun, all those who don't use a paint gun anymore, it's not yours. So I don't know what kind of phone it is, but go over and get it. As foresters, we manage forests for the full suite of forest values: biodiversity, clean water, clean air, recreational values, climate mitigation, forest carbon, and yes, of course, timber and more. But we don't tell our story about managing for all these values. Ultimately, people don't generally know that we manage for all of these things. And guess what? We're not good about communicating anything that we really do to policymakers, to neighbors, folks who care about forests, and that is a problem. I've been trying to communicate these things for pretty much all of my career as a forester, and I think I've been a failure. I've tried hard, and maybe a few successes, but for the most part, I don't think I've succeeded. With all that's going along with the importance of forests in our lives and in the lives of everybody in this country, we've got to get better at communicating these things. The program committee of this NESAF meeting felt that it was really important to reach out and get some professional help in communicating our message from outside the profession. And we are so excited that Andy Goodman from the Goodman Center is here to help us learn to be better communicators about what we do and what we care about. I first met Andy at a meeting in the Pacific Northwest quite a few years ago. I was blown away about his message and approach and the lessons on successful communications that he taught. He's going to share that all with us this morning. And serious thanks go out to a group of donors. Thank all the donors to this meeting, the contributors, the sponsors, but a group of donors came forth to allow us to have Andy here. And so we want to thank those people. A little bit about Andy. Andy Goodman is the co-founder and director emeritus of the Goodman Center, a communications training and coaching firm dedicated to helping clients reach more people with more impacts. Along with storytelling as best practice, he is the author of Why Bad Ads Happen to Good Causes and Why Bad Presentations Happen to Good Causes. Andy is internationally known for his speeches and workshops on storytelling and has led over 500 trainings for clients, including CARE, the Nature Conservancy, Boys and Girls Clubs of America, NOAA, San Diego Zoo, MIT, Princeton, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the list goes on. I won't read everything that's on the sheet here. He's designed communications curriculum for the College of Social Innovation in Boston, as well as for the African Leadership University in Mauritius. He is also currently serving as senior communications advisor to Climate Central in Princeton, New Jersey, and the Academy for Teachers in New York City. He now lives in New York. He spent the last 30 years in Los Angeles. Join me in welcoming Andy Goodman.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry, good morning. There you are. Nice to see everybody up so early. So we have 90 minutes together. We got a lot to do, so I just want to dive right in and start with this. We have a problem. And you know what? I'm sorry. It's 8 o'clock, first thing in the morning. I shouldn't be negative. So let me be more positive. I'm positive that we've got a problem. There are these things called stories that everyone tells, that everyone loves. It's how human beings communicate. And yet, when I looked at your websites, before I got here, I looked at the websites of just about every organization represented here today. Lots of good information, lots of data, lots of charts, lots of bullet points. But we need your stories. Stories are the most powerful tool you have to communicate with people, bar none. And yet, you're not telling stories as much as you should, just like Charlie said. So here's what we're going to do today in a very fast 90 minutes together. We're going to do three things. First, I want to tell you why stories are so powerful. I've just said to you they're the most powerful tool you have. I don't expect you to take that on faith, so I want to make the case. And I wish I could show you all the research I've seen over the years. It's compelling. We don't have time for that. So I've picked one example, one case study, which I think says the most important thing about storytelling. And hopefully after you see that, you'll be nodding your head and saying, okay, maybe more here than I thought. So that'll bring us to the middle part. We're going to talk about how you do it. How do you actually tell a story about your work that sticks in people's brains, stays there, and actually changes the way they think and behave? Stories that are memorable and persuasive. And we're going to have some fun doing that because you're actually going to have a chance at your tables to tell a story. Everybody in this room is going to have a chance to tell a story. And lastly, we're going to talk about the stories that you should tell. When I work with organizations, I've worked with organizations for the last 30 years, I find that no matter who you are, where you are, there are 6 categories of stories that your organization should be telling if you're going to talk about everything that you do. And for this group, I've actually added an important 7th one. So that's going to be your homework going forward, to capture and tell those stories. So that's what we're going to do, okay? So let's dive right in. Let's talk about why stories are so powerful. And look, here's your brain, right? Here's your brain, my brain, all of our brains. You see that little dot there in the middle? Let's look inside your brain for a second. Inside your brain are literally thousands of stories about the way the world works. Everybody in this room, thousands of stories about the way the world works. How do they get there? They got there from your experience, from things that your parents told you, friends, siblings, experiences that you lived, books you read, movies you saw, TV shows. Thousands of stories about the way the world works. And here's what happens. Whenever you encounter a new situation, a new person, a new place, a new circumstance, whether you're aware of it or not, your brain dials up the right story to match that situation and tell you whether or not you go forward or you hold back. If your brain dials up a story that says, okay, I recognize this is safe, this is familiar, this is friendly, then it's full speed ahead. If your brain dials up a story that says, wait, this is dangerous, this is a problem, then your guard is up. Or if your brain can't even find a story to match the situation, then your guard is up because it's like, this is new territory. Is this sounding familiar? This is how we think, this is how we behave. Let me show you an example. Here's an issue. This is not your issue, but this is something that we all can deal with. It's about organ donation. Now, in the United States today, it's easy to sign up to be an organ donor. I know in New York and California, where I used to live, you just check a box on your DMV form if you want to be an organ donor. Is that the same for most of you guys? Ring a bell? Yeah. So, show of hands, how many people here are organ donors? Just let's roughly. Wow, look at you guys. That looked like 80%, 90% of the room. The average in the United States is about 56%. A little more than half check the box. So that means that 44% don't. Now, the people who don't check the box, some of them have a medical excuse and they can't. But a lot of people who check the box check it because they have a story in their brain about donating organs that tells them, this is not for me. So let me ask you, what do you think are the stories that come up in their brain that tell them not to donate their organs? If you have an idea, just raise your hand, I'll call on you. Let me tell you, you're going to be right, because this is easy. What do you think of the stories people say, no, it's not for me? Anybody want to guess? Come on, I'm sure you know. Anybody? Right there, sir. Okay, so they have a bad story about someone rejecting it and died. Okay, good. What else? That's a good one. What else? In the back, yes. Sorry? Premature harvest. Okay, you're laughing. Number one answer. Number one answer. People think that, like, for example, let's say you're in a car accident, okay? And the ambulance comes to rescue you, okay? Horrible car accident. Got to get this guy to the hospital, quick. Oh, wait, he's an organ donor? Take the long way. We need the kidney, right? So Doctors won't work as hard to save premature harvest. Come on, give me another guess. Come on, you guys know this. Anything else? Come on. Yes. Religious beliefs, absolutely. People think, when I go to the gates of heaven and meet St. Peter, I have to be all there, right? How am I going to see him if I don't have my eyes, right? So I think you've named the big ones. Let's take a look. Doctors won't work as hard to save me. Religious beliefs. Oh, I'm too old to donate, right? It's like, who wants these old organs? In many cases, you could be as old as 80 and donate organs. And then my personal favorite, rich and famous people will jump the line that my organs won't go to the most deserving next person, that, Elon Musk will take my liver, basically, that type of thing. None of these are true. None of these are true. These are just myths. These are rumors. But people believe this stuff. And as a result, we have this situation. Right now in the United States, according to Donate Life America, there are about 100,000 people who are waiting for an organ. The need so far exceeds the supply that, look at that number in the bottom. 17 people die every day waiting for a transplant, waiting for an organ that's never coming. So we need more people to donate organs. How do we get more people to donate organs? Well, you might say, gosh, just show them that data, right? Look at those numbers. 17 people die every day. That should do it, right? No, not even close. When you show people that data, do you know what they say? That's a shame. Wow, sorry to hear it. But doctors won't work as hard to save me, religious beliefs, Elon Musk, whatever, they're sticking with their story. The only way you get people to change their minds about this, or really about anything, is to give them a more powerful story. A story that replaces the one that they default to in their brain and gives them a new story that allows them to nod their heads and say, yes, I'm going to do that. And this was done, and done very successfully in a campaign in Brazil, in the town in the red box there, pronounced in Portuguese, Recife. Now, whether you've ever been to Recife or Brazil or South America, or if you've never been, I'll bet you still know that in Recife, in Brazil, in South America, they are all crazy about the same thing. Absolutely everyone is obsessed with the same thing. It's true all over South America. What is it? Soccer, or what they call football, yes. And in Recife, the local team is called Sport Club do Recife. Stay over here, sorry, okay. I guess I'm on camera. So, the people in Recife, they love this team. See that lion with the 3 stars? That's the logo. That's everywhere in Recife. If you ever go down there, everywhere in Recife. People love this team. People would die for this team. Hold on. There's a thought. If they would die for the team, would they donate their organs for the team? Well, believe it or not, this was a campaign where they went to the fans of the team. They said, if you are truly a fan of this team, donate your organs on behalf of the team. We'll give you this cool organ donor card emblazoned with the logo of the team, and just go all the way. But here's the story they spun to change minds. They said, if you are a fan of this team, and God forbid something should happen to you and you should die, but you donate your organs, your fandom will live on forever, right? You will become an immortal fan. That was the name of the campaign, Immortal Fans. By the way, they said something even better. They said, if you die and you donate your organs and they go into the body of someone who rooted for a rival team, you turn them into a fan of our team. So everyone laughed, that's funny. This campaign was wildly successful. Wildly successful. And I want to show you a short video that chronicles that success. But before you watch it, I want to give you a number. In Pittsburgh, a few years ago, they did a similar campaign called Play It Forward, where they had representatives of local teams, the Pirates, the Penguins, the Steelers, go on TV and radio and on the internet and say, I'm donating my organs, you should do the same. So in other words, leveraging people's sports fandom to get them to change their behavior around organ donation. In the course of a year, they got 1,200 people to sign up for organ donor cards who had never done it before, 1,200. And And they were delighted with that number. That's a good number, right? Keep that number in mind, 1,200, while you watch this video. And by the way, the video's in Portuguese. Everyone here speaks Portuguese, right? Yes? Okay, now, okay. There are subtitles. Read the subtitles and enjoy Immortal Fans.
Prometo que os seus olhos vão continuar assistindo o esporte.
Que os seus pulmões continuarão respirando pelo esporte.
Prometo que o seu coração sempre baterá pelo esporte. Hoje a maior dificuldade que existe no processo de doação é o sim da família.
Eu sou rubro-negra até depois de morrer, irmão. Ter a alma é rubro-negra.
Ainda mais se quando eu doar meus órgãos, meu pulmão for pro cara do Náutico, torcedor do Náutico, ele vai respirar o esporte.
A campanha atingiu números impressionantes. 51 mil torcedores se declararam doadores, uma quantidade superior à capacidade da Ilha do Retiro.
A campanha do esporte, eu não tenho dúvida alguma que serviu para que, aumentando a oferta de doadores, a gente conseguisse zerar essa lista, conseguisse realizar o transplante em todos que estavam precisando.
Uma campanha de doação de órgãos lançada pelo esporte está ajudando a salvar a vida de muitos torcedores.
Antes do vídeo, eu tinha passado 18 anos diabético e 5 anos fazendo hemodiálise. E a vida só está melhorando, minha visão está voltando aos pouquinhos. Eu renasci de novo.
Doutor Rodrigo ligou para mim e disse: olha, a gente tem um provável coração para sua mãe. Você pode trazer ela? Eu disse: com certeza. Fiquei aliviado e sabia que eu ainda iria poder ter ela.
Isn't that amazing? 1,200 people signed up in Pittsburgh. How many signed up here? 51,000. And the waiting list for heart and corneal transplants goes down to 0 as a result of that. So, look, we're not talking today about soccer. We're not talking about heart transplants. We're talking about telling stories. And the takeaway from this campaign is the same takeaway from this book, Thinking Fast and Slow, which, by the way, I highly recommend. Daniel Kahneman, who wrote the book, is an economist, is a psychologist by trade, but he won the Nobel Prize in economics for his work in this book about how people think, how people decide. And here's what he says in the book. No one ever made a decision because of a number. They need a story. And please read that closely, because what he's not saying, and what I'm not saying is, I'm not saying the numbers don't matter. I'm not saying you don't need the data. The data is important. But when it comes to how people decide, it starts with a story that gets them nodding their head and going, yeah, I get that. That makes sense to me. And then it's backed by data that says, and I got a lot of stories that prove this point. So, stories are the most powerful communications tool you have bar none. Are you with me so far? Yeah? Okay, good. So how do you do it? Well, before that, let me just ask you this question. What are the stories out there right now that you may be competing with? Because I'm not asking you to tell stories in a vacuum. People got lots of stories in their head about forests, about the work that you do. And here's my point. If these are the stories in their heads right now about the way things are, no amount of data is going to change their mind. You need to give them more powerful stories, more resonant stories. They'll get them nodding their heads and going, yeah, that makes sense to me. And then you have a chance of actually persuading them. So telling stories, this isn't just a nice thing to do, this is a necessary thing to do. All right, so how do you do it? How do you make sure that the stories you tell are powerful and memorable? Well, this part, I want you to actually experience yourself. I want you to actually realize that you know how to tell a good story. You don't need me to tell you how to tell a good story. You know this. It's in your DNA. We human beings, we are storytelling creatures. We tell stories all the time. I was talking to Mike from Vermont before we got here, but during breakfast I said, you know, you're a natural at this, but what happens is we get in these professional situations and all of a sudden something like cramps up in us and we stop telling stories. And there we are with the data and the bullet points and the mission statements. It's like, come on. So I want to prove to you that you know how to do this. So we're going to do something right now. Everybody in this room is going to have a chance to tell a story. Here's how it's going to work. Right now, I want you to think about a time in your life when there was something that you really, really wanted. Okay? Anytime, anything. This could be when you were a kid. This could be last week. Preferably not work-related. A time in your life when there was something that you really wanted, you know? A thing that you wanted. A place that you wanted to go. A person you wanted to be with. Anything, okay? This should be easy for everybody here. After you have some time to think about that, and I'm going to give you some time to do that, then we're going to go around your table. And each person at your table is going to have 2 minutes to tell a story about that thing that you wanted, okay? And I'm not giving you any more instructions than that. Just tell a story about that thing you wanted. You know what to do. To keep us organized, because some people have 10, some people have fewer, the person sitting furthest to the left, facing the table, facing me, person sitting furthest, you go first. Okay? Because otherwise we're going to end up with, you go first. No, you go first, right? So the person sitting furthest to the left, facing the stage, you go first, and then we will go clockwise around the table until everyone has told a story. Okay? Now, while we're thinking, people in the back, people standing, people sitting, there are 4 tables up here with nobody sitting at them. Come and take a seat, please. Don't leave these tables empty. You know, I said to Charlie beforehand, it's always like, this is like church or SeaWorld. It's, you know, nobody wants to be in the splash zone, right? So come and take a seat so you can participate. There are empty seats all up here. Okay, so stay with me, guys. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to start with the person to the left. They're going to have 2 minutes to tell their story. We're going to go around the table. Stay with me. Guys, whoever that would make last, you're the timekeeper for your table, okay? You're going to participate, but while everyone else is telling their story, take out your phone or your watch or whatever, and you're going to keep an eye on 2 minutes. And so while the person is telling their story, timekeeper, hold up a 1. 1 minute has elapsed. And hold up a 2, 2 minutes have elapsed. So if you're telling a story and someone holds up a 2, it doesn't mean stop dead. It means that your time has expired. Get to the end as quickly as possible, okay? So we'll go around the table. If there are 10 people at your table, that means that this is going to take no more than 20 minutes. Thank you, math majors. Okay. All right? So, is everybody clear on what we're doing? All right, so for the next 2 minutes, just no talking, just think about that story that you're going to tell, get it organized in your head, and then I'll tell you when to start, okay? I'm going to walk around the room and just make sure we're good here. 2 minutes, think about that story. All right, let me have your attention, please. All right, I think we're organized now. Okay, so one more time, I'm going to add one more instruction. This is the tricky part. Person furthest to the left facing me, you're going first. That person raised their hand at each table. Let me see. First storytellers, everybody know who they are? Okay, good. The last person, if you go hands down. If you go clockwise, the last person is the timekeeper. Raise your hand, timekeepers. Okay, you know who you are. When it's your turn, timekeepers, pass the phone or the clock to someone else so they can keep time for you. You don't get excused from this exercise, all right? Okay, here's the last piece, guys, and this is the most important part. This is the part that everyone screws up. I've done this 500 times. It's been screwed up about 400 times. In the middle of your table is this mysterious envelope, you've all seen it, that says, please do not open until requested. When you finish at your table, when everyone has told a story, the person who went first, your job is to open up this envelope and follow the instructions inside. Not now. When everyone has told a story, open up the envelope and follow the instructions inside, and that's how you will complete this exercise. Are we clear on that? Are we clear on that? All right. It is exactly 8:30. We are going to be done at 8:50. First storytellers, please begin. Ladies and gentlemen, time is up. Time is up. Let me have your attention, please. I apologize to anybody who didn't get a chance to tell their story, but the tyranny of the clock. All right. Hopefully all the envelopes are open. Does everybody have one of these? Hold on. Does everybody have a little I liked your story slip? Yes? Or if you have a slip now, please hold it up, look at it. If you want to make this a moment of self-affirmation, that's fine. But here's what I want you to do. At your table, you just heard a bunch of stories other than your own. Maybe 4 or 5, maybe as many as 9 stories. Whatever story you heard that you like best other than your own, please take this slip of paper and hand it to that storyteller now. Please vote for your favorite story at your table. All right. Has everyone voted? Yes? Let me have your attention, please. Attention, please, ladies and gentlemen. The votes are all in? All right. Does anybody in this room now have in their hands or sitting in front of them 9 slips of paper? Did anybody sweep a table of 10? Anybody with 9? Nobody? Nobody? Anybody with 8 slips of paper? 8. Anybody with 8? Still nobody. 7 slips of paper. Hand up if you have 7. Did you get 7 votes at your table? Still nobody. 6. 6 slips of paper. I see a hand in the back. Would you come up here, please? Would you come up here, please? You're 6 too? Have a seat. Didn't know this was going to happen, did you? That's right. He says he took them all. All right. Come on up, please. First hand I see, because there may be several. Anybody with 5 slips of paper? 5. 5. In the back. I see in the back there. Would you come up, please? One more person. Give me a hand. Okay. I'm going to ask these people to do what they don't want to do, which is to share their story with the entire room. But give me a second. I need to talk to them for 1 second. So talk among yourselves for a second. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hear stories from Mitch, Megan, and Thomas. Please give them as much attention as you did to the people at your tables. Round of applause, please, for Mitch.
I've had nightmares worse than this, but trying to remember my story here. So when I was in college at the University of Maine, I worked in Orono. I don't know if you're familiar with the area. It was pretty far. It was kind of outside of the range of a car, which I did not have. So I used my bike, which I valued greatly. I would ride it to work and for fun. And I wrote it to this gas station job, which I truly hated, but I needed to feed myself. And then, unfortunately, after a night of perhaps one too many beers, I lost the bike. It was stolen from me outside of the house. So I searched high and low for this bike. It was kind of like my second job, was trying to find the bike itself. And I never did find it, so I had to come up with another mode of transportation, which was either foot or riding another rustier bike. So life persisted like this for multiple months until one day I was in the passenger seat of a car that was giving me a ride to this nighttime gas station shift. By the way, I replaced a guy who had gotten robbed, so that's why I had the job opportunity. But I'm getting a ride to this job, and I see the bike frame go by in the window. I was this blue and white Cannondale, I remember it. I still have the bike because the bike was sitting upside of a different Irving that I didn't work at. And I got out of the car and stole my bike back.
Thank you, Mitch. So the moral of that story is stealing is good. Oh, I think, okay. Round of applause, please, for Megan. Go ahead, Megan.
I'm just going to jump right in so I don't have to think about it too much. I'm hoping you all remember last year's NESAF, where there were quite a few mounted deer heads in the raffle. And I thought it would probably be the funniest thing in the world if I brought one of those home to my two roommates who aren't the biggest fans of hunting. So I spent about $40 on raffle tickets, which, if you do the math, that does equal about 60 raffle tickets. And I put all but 4 into one of the deer heads buckets. It is important to mention that there were 3 other tickets in there before I put my 56. And I really did want it. And I was friends with the ladies running the raffle. They were looking at me every time. They were like, we're almost about to choose, we're almost about to choose. And eventually, the day did come where the raffle was chosen, and I did win. And I now have a mounted deer head on my wall, despite never having been hunting.
Thank you. Thank you. I think the moral of that story is clear. Tom. Thomas or Tom? Tom.
I didn't really expect to be sharing this in such a broad audience, but I have 2 daughters, and my oldest, when she was 6, we found out she has very severe food allergies that lead to severe eczema outbreaks. And so from the time she was 6 until she was 2, she would scratch and itch and rip her skin open, and she basically bled from head to toe every day, every night. She didn't sleep for a couple of years, which means we didn't sleep for a couple of years. But basically spent every night just wishing we could do something about it and find something to do about it. And we spent a year going through many doctors who, I don't know if you guys have had this experience, but they don't know that some of us do understand science and statistics. It's really irritating when you ask questions and get blown off. But we eventually found a dermatologist that prescribed something that helped with the eczema. And by the time she now has a monthly injection she has to take, but by the time she was 3, she had white skin and could sleep without tearing herself open. And we now spend every 9 weeks a week in California, because it's the only place we could find that has a treatment program for her allergies. But after putting all the effort in, we finally found someone who is making a difference, and she was anaphylactic to wheat, dairy, eggs, and peanut, and now she eats 3 out of the 4. So that's my story.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. One more round of applause for all of our storytellers. Thank you very much. You're all done. Thank you. You're good. You're good. Thank you, Megan. Thank you. All right. So, You just heard at your table 4, 5, 8, 9 stories. You just heard 3 more. So in less than a half an hour, you heard maybe as many as 10 stories. And the question that we asked you to consider at your table is, what do the stories have in common? Even though I gave you no instructions on how to tell a story, you all did certain things the same way instinctively because, as I said at the beginning, you all know how to tell a story. So I asked one person at each table to write down at least 3 things that you did, okay? So let me call on this table right here. Did someone write down? Give me one thing from your list that everyone at your table did the same way. Okay, we'll get a microphone around, good.
One of these things is that each of the stories started with something we valued.
Each of the stories started with something you valued. Can you give me an example?
We explained.
Go ahead.
We all instinctively explained what we valued, what the story was going to mean to us. In terms of we set it up with some sort of, I have some value, and then this is how that came to fruition.
Very good, very good. So whether it comes at the beginning or the end, all stories relate to some kind of value or have some kind of meaning to them. Even if the story is about something very simple, ultimately it's like, what did the story mean? Because we want to extract the meaning from the story. Very good. This table right here, I think you already got a microphone. Who's, right there? Who's got the mic? Go ahead. Something from your list that we haven't heard, something else, and then we'll go over there.
We found that, let me see, I got a whole bunch of them.
Just pick one, anyone that...
So the hardest thing was the wrap-up, that we felt that all of us left something hanging, which might be even more powerful, that there was something more to be given at the end.
So you left people wanting more.
Right.
Good, that's good. I mean, think about all the encounters you've had where people can't get away from you as fast as possible, right? Imagine talking to someone where they're wanting more. That's a nice thing about stories, that it engages people, makes them want some more. Let's do another table. Charlie, you got the mic? How about this table right there behind you? Yep, someone there got it. Who had the list there? Something on your list that we haven't heard.
Yeah, all of our stories included interactions with others.
Interactions with others, absolutely. Look, stories are always about people. That's the thing. No matter what you're talking about, whether you want a thing or a place or you want to do something, it's always about interacting with other people. So there'll be other people featured in the story. And we certainly saw that in the stories that we heard up here. Just pick another table back there, Charlie. Someone else there? There you go. Someone who had the list there. There you go. Something else on your list.
Everyone got what they wanted in their story.
Now that's interesting. Okay, everyone got what they wanted. Let me ask you, in the stories you heard at your table, did anybody not get what they wanted? Yeah, okay. So stories aren't always about getting what you want. Spoiled table number 17. But whether you got what you wanted or you didn't get what you want, at the ending, there's a clear ending. We find out whether you got it or you didn't. There's a clear resolution to the story. So if you're going to tell a story about wanting something, what you're telling your audience at the end is, at the end of this story, you're either going to find out that I got it or I didn't. Good stories have a clear ending, because we've all heard the story that doesn't end, right? It's like, does this story have an ending? Why was I here? How fast can I get away from you, right? Let's just raise your hand if you have something on your list that we haven't heard. Look, people who have got the list, something on your list that we haven't heard. Yes, give me your loud outside voice.
All of our stories started with an event that was a catalyst.
Something that kicks the story off. Very good, very good. I think you've got most of them, so let me do this. Let me show you what all stories should do, because all stories have to answer 6 questions. This is the basis. All stories answer 6 questions. The first question was an easy one. Who is this story about? Well, at your table, there was no trouble there. It was about you. This is a story about me and this thing I want. But when someone tells you a story, the first question in your mind is, who are we talking about here? We talking about you? Talking about her? Who are we talking about? I need somebody to follow through the story. If I can't connect with somebody, identify with somebody, I'm lost. So stories always start by telling us who's it about. And who is a person? It's not an organization. It's not a program. It's not an initiative. People don't identify with entities. People identify with people. So the first question you got to answer is, who is this story about? Give me a person. Give me a human being to connect with. The next question is, what do they want? What is the thing that they want? They want their bike back. They want a deer head for some reason. They want their kid to get over their allergy. What is it they want? You know, this might sound like a simplification, but think about any TV show you're watching, movie you've seen recently, book you're reading, whatever. I'll bet you that the story ultimately boils down to who's it about and what do they want. That's what all stories are. Who's it about and what do they want? And once the audience knows that, then they're with you. They're like, okay, let's see if they get it. Now, here's the important thing. On the way to the thing they want, something's got to stand in their way to create some tension, to make you wonder, are they ever going to get it? Without this barrier, without this obstacle, there's no story. It's not interesting. You know, if somebody at your table said, when I was 5, I wanted a bike for Christmas. And on Christmas morning, my parents got me a bike. Thanks, everybody. Nobody's handing that person an I liked your story slip at that table. That's right. That's boring. What makes stories interesting are the barriers that come up, the obstacles, the moments of surprise where we go, oh, didn't see that coming. So what happened next? What'd you do? How'd you get around that one? And by the way, this isn't just me talking. This is human history. This is evolution talking. We have evolved to need this in our stories, and I'll prove it to you. I'm going to give you a short course in human history. Bear with me, very short. Let's jump back in time 10,000 years, okay? You see these two cavemen? You see that bush between them and the distance behind them? Well, 10,000 years ago, today, I think it was a Thursday, they turned around and noticed that the bush was shaking. Okay? Now, it's not windy, there's no earthquake, but for some reason the bush is shaking. The caveman on the left observes the shaking bush, and he thinks this. The caveman on the right saw the very same thing, but he thinks this. And unmoved by this unusual event, the caveman on the right goes his merry way, whistling a merry tune, and guess what happens? Yeah. A saber-toothed tiger jumps out of the shaking bush and eats him alive. This is anthropology, people. The caveman on the left, he survives. His DNA gets passed down. We are his descendants. The caveman on the right, not so much. So the point is that we have evolved as a species, we Homo sapiens, to pay very close attention when something happens that we don't expect. And when you translate that into a story, when someone tells us a story where we know what's going to happen from word one, we're bored, we're not paying attention. But the minute something happens we don't expect, some obstacle pops up, some barrier, something we don't see coming, now you got our full attention. So stories need these obstacles. And how we get past them, that's the interesting part. How do they solve that problem? How do they respond? And if other obstacles pop up, how do they respond every time? In fact, the more obstacles, the more interesting the story. That happened, you got past it, and then that happened, and you got past that. Wow. And in the end, what happens? You said all stories have a resolution. Whether you got the thing you wanted or you didn't, there's a clear ending. And even more importantly, there's a clear meaning. Why did we take this journey? 6 questions. Who's it about? What do they want? What stands in their way to make it interesting? How do they respond? What happens in the end? And what does it mean? If your stories can answer those questions, then you've got a good story. Okay, last piece. What stories should you tell? As I said, there are 6 categories. These apply to every organization, whether you are independent, nonprofit, government agency, just a business or a family, whatever. These are the stories you need to tell. 6 categories. First category is why you do what you do. That's what people want to know. Why in this business? What's it all about? What are you really hoping to do here? What are you hoping to accomplish? What is your why? Now, I should say, I told you at the very top that to prepare for this, I looked at your websites. So, for example, Vermont government, Vermont Forest. Are you here in the room, some Vermont Forest people? Yes? What an enthusiastic bunch. I saw 26 people under Vermont.gov. I know you're here. So on your website, I was wondering, where is your sort of why we do what we do story, other than the fact that we're just in government? I went to the Department of Forest, Parks and Recreation. Mike, is this where you used to work? There's Mike. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So I'm looking for your why, and I found something close. As climate change impacts forest ecosystem function, there's a need for management to increase forest adaptive capacity. There's a why story here. Sometimes why you do what you do is answered by what happens if you don't. So what's that story? What happens if you don't? Tell that story, and they'll understand why you do what you do. But that's what people want to know about any organization. Why in it? Why does it matter to you? The why story is number 1. Second, how we started. New England Forestry Foundation. You hear New England Forestry Foundation? Well, they signed up. Saw you on the registration list. They do a nice job. On their website, their history is a story about some real people. And this is actually exceptional, because most histories I see are a boring chronology. In 1950, the association was formed, blah, blah. Dull. It's like there are some people who got together at some point and said, we need to do something about this, and here we go. So tell that story. Now, there is an exception. One group I was with, they raised their hand, they said, we were formed by an act of Congress. Okay, move on. You know? But I think if you're an organization that was started by real people, tell that story. They want to know where you came from. What are your roots? Third category is the emblematic success story. And what I mean by that is, this is a success story that says, if you understand this story, you really get what we do. It's not just a success story, it's like the success story. And again, I found several examples of this. This is from Forest Carbon Works. Are you here, Forest Carbon Works? Yeah! On your website is a good example of this. It's the story of the Lackeys. Not a great name, but what are you going to do? But it tells their story. This is the example of what this organization does at the human level. It's the emblematic success story. Fifth category is the core values stories. And this is really fertile territory for you guys, no pun intended, because so many organizations do what the Northern Forest Center does. You hear Northern Forest Center? Yeah, all right. On your website, you have your beliefs. We believe in the new forest future. We believe in bold adaptive leadership. We believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion. All good, but if you truly believe these things, then there should be stories that show how that actually looks in real life. Whether you call them beliefs, core values, principles, so many of us list those on our websites, but it's just a nice bunch of words. And they're worthy, they're absolutely good aspirations, but to me, they don't come to life until you tell me a story that says, this is what it really looks like. This is how we live these values. This is how we live these principles. This is how we live these beliefs. Think of these as cues for stories. Fifth category is the striving to improve story. This is a hard one because most people don't collect these, and I don't ask you to collect these and share these publicly because these are stories of failure. These are stories of making mistakes, but learning from them. Because that's how we learn, right? We make a mistake, we do better next time. And it's very healthy for organizations to collect these stories. And I'm seeing more people do it. United Way, Salt Lake City has what they call a Fail Forward Fest. They share stories of failure to say, we tried this, it didn't work, here's how you can do better. And we're seeing this in lots of different areas, lots of different sectors are collecting stories of failure to say, we're not perfect, we make mistakes, but we learn from them and do better. You can learn from our mistakes. Let's share some stories of what I call striving to improve. And by the way, this is very healthy internally, because if you have someone on your team who makes a mistake, and you can throw your arm around their shoulder and say, you know what, Charlie made the same mistake, but he learned from it and did better. That's how we do around here. That's a lot healthier than, you know what, Charlie made the same mistake. That's why he doesn't work here anymore. I'm not thinking of any particular Charlie. Sixth category is the where we are going story. This is the vision story. The story that says, if we do our jobs well, this is what the world's going to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Not just a strategic plan, not just some numerical projections, but actually take that person into that world and walk them around and say, I think this is what it's going to look like. Forest Stewards Guild, are you here, Forest Stewards Guild? All right. You do what most people do. You have a vision statement. We envision ecologically, economically, and socially responsible forestry, et cetera, et cetera. All good. Good to have a vision. But you really want to get people to want to support you and help you get there? Take them into that world. Walk them around. Show them what it looks like. Make them really feel it. And then maybe they'll want to be part of what you do. Now, some people have said to me, well, wait a second. That story hasn't happened yet. I'm literally making it up. It's fiction. Is that okay? And I'll tell you this. A story about the future is no more fictional than a strategic plan. It's just another way of talking about the future, except I think it's more interesting. So these are the 6 basic categories that I think pertain to all organizations that I've had the privilege of working with, including you guys. But there's a 7th one that is particularly relevant right now, and it's this. It's stories about climate change, because this is something that is affecting everyone, everywhere, and will continue to for a while. And it really comes down to this. If we can do this, then we can start to get people to understand how we are addressing climate change, and yet still are doing things that they think maybe we shouldn't be doing. Tell them the stories that show that we can still harvest trees while taking measures to address climate change. We can do that. We are doing that. Tell them the stories. So this is your homework going forward. These are the 7 categories. If you truly want to leverage the power of story, collect and tell these stories. And we've given you a tool to do it. In your packets, when you checked in, there's this page, which has these questions, those 6 questions I showed you, in order. So you'll find this in your packet, and as you go out and try to collect stories, use this tool to make sure that you ask all the questions that you should be asking. And speaking of asking questions, since we do have time, if you have a question or comment about anything we've talked about so far, I'd like to give you a chance to ask it now. We've got some mics that'll be available in the room. We talked about why storytelling is powerful. We talked about how to tell a good story. And we talked about the stories you should be telling going forward. There's a question right here, Charlie.
Thank you. One of the questions I wanted to ask was about how do you cultivate those stories among your constituencies? And I think about particularly, you showed and people use landowner testimonials, things like this. Particularly in the context of trying to uplift underrepresented voices, it's really important that these don't become exploitative. And there's that real tension of how do you tell these stories about successes and helping people in need, but not doing it in a manner that's going to have that imbalance of power.
Very good question. So let's take the example of the ill-named lackeys. I would hope that in telling their story, the organization that collected that story went to them and said, we'd like to share your story. First of all, we need your full permission and cooperation. And you want to tell a story that centers them at the story and shows them with some agency. One of the great failures of a lot of storytelling, particularly in the nonprofit world where I spent a lot of my time, was the story was how we fixed you, the broken person, right? It's like, we did everything. We just changed you from broken to fixed. You don't want to tell stories like that. You want to tell stories that show that this person, this family, was part of a partnership with the organization, that there was a collaboration that went on, and they have some agency in the collaboration. You need their full permission, and you want to make sure, like you said, that we don't exploit them, that we don't look at them as somebody that we fixed or educated or changed. They have to be part of the process. Does that make sense? Okay, good. Thank you for raising that point. Other questions, comments? Do I see any hands? I see Mike moving. Yes, right there, sir. Okay, let's get that mic going.
So as foresters, we tend to like data and science, rational arguments, but people respond to emotion.
Yes.
How do we include both in our stories?
That's a really good question, and that's the whole idea. Stories are what engage people emotionally. That's just the whole nature of story. And then you back the story with data. So you tell the story first. So you get people nodding their heads and going, yeah, I get that. And oh, here's the data that shows I didn't just cherry pick a story that's really exceptional, that this story is representational of lots of data out there. And just to further that point, have you ever heard the expression, we're going for hearts and minds? Right, hearts and minds? There's a reason we say hearts and minds and not minds and hearts, because that's how human beings work. If it doesn't get past here, it doesn't get to here. If I don't care, I'm not paying attention. So stories can leverage the emotional aspect of people, can get them really caring, and then give them the data so as they think about it, they realize it wasn't just one story, there are thousands of stories. Does that make sense? Very good. One more question? I've got one last story to share with you. Over here? There we go. Go ahead.
After I tell my story, what do I do next?
Well, hopefully you've told your story, and now they want to do more. They want to know, okay, I got the story, I got the point. What is it that you want me to do? What is the next step from here? So hopefully you have that answer. You know what they want them to do. We tell stories to move people. One of the things I like to say is, you can't get people to face facts if they're looking the wrong way. So you tell them the story to get them looking the right way, and then you give them the facts and tell them what you need them to do. With that, I want to play one more example of storytelling for you that has this moral. Never underestimate the power of a good story. This story comes to us all the way from France. So you're going to hear, again, the characters are speaking French, but there are subtitles. But I think this makes a good point that you really never know how powerful a story can be. And this story starts in a forest, so take a look.
Et puis j'atterris ici. Oh, c'est incroyable. Hein? T'entends ça, chérie?
Ben oui, c'est fou.
Thank you very much for your time and attention. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you. Thanks, John.
Something to take home, I guess. So you know the schedule. This room is going to get broken down like it did yesterday, and at 10 o'clock there'll be 3 rooms, and this next set of sessions, concurrent sessions, will occur. Reminder, there was a lost phone. It's at the registration desk in case you lost your phone. One other item, a few of us are going to try to play some music this evening. If you've brought an instrument, we're going to meet at the registration table lobby at about 7:30. You're free now until 10 o'clock. Thank you.